Hi everyone, welcome back to Philosophy in the Sun, where we chat about philosophy and disability theory. Today is episode 5 in my series on the Netflix show Wednesday, and today we're looking at season 2, episode 5. And in particular, we're going to look at the moral question of lying. So this episode really focuses in on Enid and Wednesday's relationship. And we see that relationship beginning to fracture under the stress that the show's plot has put on it so far. So last week, Wednesday got herself chucked out of a window because she was trying to pursue Tyler, her evil ex-boyfriend, who also can turn into a monster, because she had a vision that her best friend Enid was going to get axed by her evil ex-boyfriend or something. And instead of talking to her best friend Enid about the situation, she just went hell for leather straight ahead and got herself knocked into a coma. So Enid is understandably somewhat upset with her best friend and is worried about Wednesday's tendency to go charging into Mortal Kombat unassisted more or less all of the time. And there's a moment where the two girls are in their dorm room and they basically start fighting. So a big part of the problem here is that Wednesday's not being super truthful to Enid. In fact, she is being a little bit of a liar, pants on fire. There are really some interesting moral problems with lying. Now, I think most of us instinctively feel that lying usually isn't absolutely morally right, but sometimes it's what we might call morally acceptable, especially a white lie. And the philosophy that's sort of most happy for us to accept that sometimes we can lie is probably utilitarianism. And this is the philosophy that what matters morally is what's going to make the most number of people happy. So, look, if your friend has a bad hat and you tell them it's a bad hat, you're probably going to make them miserable. If your friend has a bad hat and you just politely say, "Lovely hat, my friend," you're probably doing the right thing because it will increase overall happiness. Now, a philosophy that passionately disagrees with this is deontological ethics, or duty-based ethics, which is most closely associated with the classic 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant, who argued that it is never right to lie, ever, absolutely ever, under any circumstances whatsoever. So this would mean for Wednesday that there's just no moral justification if she wants to go ahead and be a good person morally. There's just no justification for her to deceive and lie to Enid about the situation that Enid is experiencing. Now, for Immanuel Kant, this is the case for a few reasons. One really important reason is that Immanuel Kant believed that human reason, or the ability to sort of think for ourselves and make decisions, was almost sacred, not religiously sacred. He was a man of God, but he actually thought it was quite important to separate philosophy and religion. But he believed that people have this really special and remarkable capacity to think for ourselves and make our own moral decisions. And for this philosopher, that's in a way what makes human beings human and special and remarkable, so we can think for ourselves and we can make our own choices. And if you lie to someone, you give them the wrong information and you take away their ability to discern what they ought to do in a given situation. So for Enid and Wednesday is not being truthful about the situation that Enid is in. So if she were to tell Enid, "Hey, I had this psychic vision that you might die. I'm super worried about it," then Enid would be able to take steps to, say, protect herself or figure out ways that we might behave well that take into account this new piece of information that there's a pretty serious risk here. So when we lie, we kind of take away that option for other people to do what's right because they don't have all the information that they might need to do what's right. And the secondary part is that Immanuel Kant believes that this ability we have to reason is just vitally important. So if you lie to people, you're stopping them from being truly human and you're treating them as a thing. And he thought you should really never treat people as objects. Always you should treat people, as agents who make their own choices. Now the thing here is that for Immanuel Kant, morality and ethics and doing what's right really comes from within, he believed. And he thought that all human beings had the ability to discern what was right from wrong by turning to our own reason. And he thought that reason itself would show people right from wrong if they were willing to look inwards and truly understand right from wrong action. Now, he essentially suggests that from the idea that we're all rational comes a sort of rule or code for conduct that we can discern from our own reason. And this is called the categorical imperative. And he suggests that we can always basically follow this ground rule, not by rote, but as a useful tool for doing what's morally right. And that is, act only according to that maxim which you would will to be a universal law of nature. Or in other words, only do something if you think you would want that thing to be done in every case similar to the one you're in right now, as if it were literally a law of nature, like gravity. So we take this little moment between Wednesday and Enid. So let's accept that Wednesday is perhaps a little intense, but still a rational human being. And we can say, hey, Wednesday, would you want everyone forever, for all of space and time, to do exactly what you're doing to Enid here right now? And being a contrarian, she might defiantly say yes, but as a rational person, she probably wouldn't mean it. Because if people always behaved to each other as Wednesday behaves to Enid here, then friendship itself would collapse, and that would not be an imaginary world we would all want to live in. So that's Kant's main insight, is that if you lie, essentially morality and ethics can't hold, and so the world that you imagine into being when you do that little thought experiment isn't a coherent, rational world, and therefore it can't be the right thing to do. So he would say, no, you can't lie, it's not right.